Hey Justin,
Hey Matthew,
how you doing?
I am doing okay. I'm prodding the rest of the team to show up. We're actually in another call at the moment.
Haha.
I also don't have the right permissions to actually create an agenda either. So the rebrand from Hyperledger to LDTF is continuing on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'd forgotten that that was gonna be a spanner in the works.
Yes. The redirects and permissions are all pooched, I believe is the technical term in the wiki. So yeah, it may just be a fairly loose open floor type of meeting.
Yeah, no worries. That's fine.
How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. Yeah, I just had to drop off another call to come to this one as well, actually. Um, but last one of the day for me. So
Good.
nearly there. Um, I was
All
going to
right.
catch up with you, maybe outside of this call, but the pluggable consensus stuff that came up kind of a month or two ago.
Yeah.
Be good to just catch up with where any of that got to. Um, is that
Yeah.
something that's best for me to DM you about rather than bring up on this call?
Yeah. Yeah. Why don't we set up a call separate from this one
Okay.
to go over that? Um, I'm looking pretty good actually this week. I'm on holiday Friday, or sometime next week would be good.
Sure.
Um,
I'll ping you a date that fits within that, but if it's not a good slot, then just feel free to counter it.
Sure, and feel free to bring in anyone else you want. I'll probably grab a couple of engineers that are familiar with the both the plugin architecture as well as the engine API, since that's the main conduit through where we think this is going to happen. There's also some other folks that are interested in running QBFT over the engine API. So I don't know if that's of any interest to you or
Oh,
um, analogous to what you had in mind, but.
yeah, yeah, that'd be super interesting to hear. Yeah, to hear about. Um, yeah, okay, that sounds good. I'll drop you an invite and we'll chat separately.
Sounds good. Okay, we're at five after, so I will get started with the boring bits. Reminder that this is being recorded. Um, Antitrust notice is available and linked to in where we keep our agendas. Please mute us speaking, and if you have a question, use the raise hand feature. Standard disclaimers, done. Um, Great. So, what do we want to talk about? Oh, so point of introduction here. I am running the meeting, even though I don't normally do that. Y'all know me, Justin with Consensus. Matt Nelson has left Consensus. However, he is still going to be somewhat engaged with Besu and LDTF moving forward. In the interim, I'm going to be fielding some of his past responsibilities while we look for a replacement. So if you have things that you would normally have gone to Matt for, feel free to come to me for them in the short term, and there will be updates on that in the future.
Do you get the impression, Justin, that Matt might join some of the community calls, or perhaps not?
Yes, I believe he will still be joining definitely the Ethereum community calls and possibly some of the LDTF calls, such as this one.
Cool. Okay.
All right. Um, Unfortunately, at the moment, I don't have access to spin up an agenda or create anything in the wiki due to the rebrand. So I'll have to get that fixed. Hey, wow, consensus just showed up. Awesome. So at the moment, we don't have a good hard and fast agenda. Looking at the prior agenda, we were discussing, Matt, you had issues assigning tickets in GitHub. Did you get that straightened out?
Yeah, I think that's all good. Thanks, Justin. I think it was a
Okay.
combination of who I was trying to assign it to and yeah, some other bits and pieces. But yeah, no, I think that's all sorted. Thanks.
Okay. Let's see, we had an agenda item here where Matt was going to get clarity on the naming change, but I don't believe that happened. And we're already seeing a number of knock-on effects from the rebrand, specifically challenges with the wiki. So if anybody else has rebrand related challenges or things that have broken, feel free to send those my way and I'll collect them up for a message to Rye and anybody else at LDTF that we think can help us. All right, let's see, moving along. Roadmap review, which I am not really prepared to execute because I haven't heard of anything changing since then.
It's Justin.
Sorry, Justin, a question
Yeah.
about the rebranding. So,
Yeah.
should we update our copyright notice to reflect that?
Let me ask. I don't know.
Okay.
Can you give us like a high level of what we've done so far with the rebrand? Like, is it mostly Wiki has moved and there's the new GitHub, or is there where are we at with the steps?
I don't know the answer to that either. Here's things that I have noticed that are broken. Wiki. GitHub seems to be okay for me so far, but I also haven't seen it being renamed or moved. Everything is still under the Hyperledger org, so I don't know about that. And like I said, I'm only pinch hitting for Matt, but I don't really. I'm not on the TSC like he was, right? So let's see.
Do we know if Matt Nelson is going to be joining these calls for a little while?
TBD. So he has expressed to me that he will continue to participate in Ethereum related things and possibly some of the LDTF related things. His membership on the TSC is till the end of the calendar year. Okay, I'm sorry, Fabio. What was your question? Was about the licensing? That's right. Okay, I got that.
Yeah, on top of every file.
Yeah. Copyright headers. Okay. All right, anybody got anything that they want to discuss? Let's move on to release updates. Let's see. We had a release not too long ago. Does anybody have anything that they want to make sure we hold the next release for? or do we just plan on continuing our normal 2-week cadence and release what is available to be released? Any thoughts? Steady on? Sounds like steady on.
Yeah, I think I'm happy to continue to do the 2-week release cadence. I think that's a good just de facto thing to do. But I think this last cycle we only did one release for the whole month of September. So we're probably coming up on if we're doing a 2-week cadence, we probably are past our 2-week cadence at this point.
So, Chaminda submitted an interesting PR that updates a lot of the GitHub actions and makes it a lot easier for us to kind of do draft-like behavior without relying on GitHub's draft mechanics, since they don't really integrate with GitHub actions in the way that we want them to. So that PR has been approved and it's outstanding. I think maybe when that merges, we could just try that process out and do a release. I'm not married to any particular date, but like you said, it's been a little while. Maybe we could do one this week. Does that seem reasonable? Try a new process this week?
Yeah, I think Lewis pointed out in chat that Simon kind of volunteered to be the next guinea pig for the new release process. So that maybe we can coordinate with him today.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna put that on my to-do list. All right. Work updates. Anybody have any areas of work that they want to discuss? I can talk a little bit about some of the refactoring that I've been doing. My interest in Dagger and modularizing the code base continues with an eye towards decoupling all the things. Our configuration layer is one of the earlier, most promising areas of decoupling. I created a very large branch where I went down the rabbit hole and just started going nuts, and this proved to be a little bit too big and unwieldy to review. I've since gone back and broken it up into smaller pieces. So you'll see a number of PRs outstanding from me having to do with Besu command and the options and configurations, etc. Please take a look at those, weigh in on them, maybe even approve them. And I'm going to continue breaking that stuff apart and making it so that Dagger can provide the resulting configurations to anything that needs them downstream. And so that's kind of where I'm at as an individual contributor pursuing this decoupling. So happy to answer questions on that. Happy to advise if anybody is Dagger curious and wants to improve the code base and continue decoupling it. This is a great way to do that. Yeah, and so this is going to be an ongoing thing. I think it will yield benefits with regard to modularizing consensus mechanisms as they exist in the kind of spread throughout Besu as we want to get things more driven through the engine API. This will free us up to remove lots of code that may or may not be relevant. So that's my area of work. Does anybody else want to volunteer an update?
Yeah, I'm happy to give an update. I just put it in the chat just on bonsai archive work. I could maybe just mention a couple of other PRs that have been going in, mainly related to the kind of enterprise QBFT space. But yeah, I think the main thing to update on is bonsai archive.
Okay.
So yeah, so I did give an update on the last contributor call, just to say that kind of things were ticking over, and I'd had a lot of really useful help from Gary and Karim. So I've had a fair amount of time to spend on this since the last call. And I've had an equally large amount of help continue from Gary and Karim, which has been really useful. I think now the work is at a point where it's close to being taken out of draft. I'm mainly writing tests at the moment. And as far as kind of manually standing up Bonza archive nodes go, I have a node that I've synced with the Holsky testnet using Teku, and that's staying in sync at the head of the Holsky chain. I've been kind of exercising that with some manual state queries like get balance and get transaction count for historic blocks in Holsky. And they all seem to be working as you would expect for an archive node. Transaction count's easy to check because you can go and look at the block and look at the transactions and see what the nonce should have been. Balance is harder because without another reference implementation of an archive node to check the balance of an address at a given block, I don't think you get that out of the data that's in the block or the transactions. You just get the change in balance for a given account in that transaction. So yeah, so generally speaking, I think the running it manually is going pretty well. I've also stood up QBFT chains with an archive node, and again that's working as designed. And actually, I've some of the scenarios I hadn't factored in for QBFT chains, particularly things like storage delete was something I hadn't exercised, but obviously a test chain quickly showed up issues around that. So I'm going to wrapper up specific sets of state change into the tests that go into the PR under things like the QBFT soak test, just to check some of the state changes that the testnet threw up.
When you mentioned the state delete, is one of the cases that you're investigating or exercising self-destruct in the context of QBFT? I think that's an interesting area because that was when self-destruct was active on mainnet. That was definitely a corner case that we had to concern ourselves with that we're not as concerned about now. So just kind of curious if you're exercising that or if you've run into cases that are problematic with self-destruct on QBFT networks.
Yeah, so I've got to admit I haven't tried that yet, but it would definitely been in the back of my mind as an area that needs exercising. So I'll add that to the list of things that I need to add tests to. Yeah, you're right. I think it's the kind of edge case that would throw up issues if we don't test for it.
I think you had time to test some slot deletion. It's not as self-destruct, but it's the same kind of test.
Sorry, say that again, Karim. Sorry, I missed that.
Ah, sorry. No, I said you did some test for slot deletion.
Yes.
So it's not similar to self-destruct, but it's the same kind of behavior. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I've also been some of the recent work has been looking at making it honor the code storage mechanism, either code hash or account hash. And so yeah, I think the contract code and self-destruct is probably one of the last areas I need to write some tests for. Amazian has a question on the chat, which is just about performance. So I don't have much kind of data on that yet, Amazian. I guess I could probably do with a catch up with you specifically about what kind of performance metrics I should try and gather when a node, an archive node, is synced to the head of a chain to spot degradation.
Yeah, I think one simple test is just to basically like test ETH call on old blocks, because currently on Besu, if you have a Besu for node, which is not archive friendly, it has to roll back basically the state using try logs until that specific block state, execute ith call, and then give back the data, like the result. And I was wondering, just like simple tests, not like any load testing. I can actually give you some tooling for load testing as well. But at least just to see like if an ith call takes seconds or milliseconds, basically, just to see if it works as expected.
Yeah, that's useful. Thanks. Yeah, I'll factor some of that in, and maybe I'll DM you the link to the thread in Discord, Amizian, if you haven't seen it already, because that might be a useful place to put some of that information, so it's
Yeah.
all in place.
I saw the thread. I think
Cool.
yeah. Okay.
Great. It's probably also worth saying I owe the wiki an update on how the design has kind of evolved over the last kind of 4 or 6 weeks. So I do plan to do that, so it's up to date with the overall kind of code design. So I will be doing that. I can't think of anything else worth covering, particularly in this forum, other than, again, thanks to Gary and Karim particularly for all the help getting it this far. Justin, there were a couple of just small other items I thought worth highlighting.
Awesome, go for it.
Well, just around areas of interest really that have been merged recently, that I just thought were worth raising on this call. So one bit of work that the chap from I think from Citibank, I only know his GitHub ID, but I don't know his actual name. He spent a lot of time working on the empty block period work for permission chains, which merged I think end of last week. So that was a really interesting and I think really useful bit of work for enterprises around having blocks that have longer periods when there are no transactions to kind of save some storage and processing, and then immediately start mining blocks as soon as transactions come in. And that's something that it's gone in as an experimental Genesis option. Again, that's kind of a thing I hadn't seen used before, was Genesis options that are marked experimental. So we've just used an X prefix for the kubefd Genesis parameter. So we're going to encourage some of our users to kind of have a play with it. But we're also finding it really useful where we have other Web3 applications that we're running test frameworks for, and we want Besu to be part of the test framework. It's really useful to be able to configure long block periods combined with another feature that's gone in experimental, which is to purely for dev and test environments to produce blocks more frequently than once a second. So that's not something we'd expect to be moved out of experimental, really. Not without much more discussion, because things like the block timestamp on a block is to the granularity of a second, not milliseconds. But again, we have frameworks where the combination of those two features is proving really useful to effectively mine blocks really quickly when the test produces some transactions, and then just go into like a slow tick over mode when the test is doing something else. And I just thought they were interesting areas of development that were going on the enterprise side.
Cool, thank you. Okay, anybody else have any work updates? Okay.
A small update from my side also, like the work on Workle tree Constantine. So actually I didn't get time last week due to other priorities. So I'm planning to work this for Thursday and Friday on that.
Cool.
As another update, like the BLS implementation of Constantine is outperforming the NARC crypto implementation of Constantine. So we're probably going to switch in the near future Besu over to the Constantine implementation. So good work, Nishal.
Thank you, Gary. Good to hear that.
Rad. Very cool. Okay, anybody have any other business or work updates? Does anybody have anything they just want to chat about in an open forum or perhaps get on a future agenda? Does anybody want 30 minutes back?
Yes, please.
All right. Okay, well, great work, everybody. See you on Discord. The next meeting should hopefully have a proper agenda and maybe some of the more traditional things we do, like review numbers and metrics and all those things. But I'm not prepared for that at the moment, and I think we'll be okay if we just jump on that next session.
Thanks for running the show, Justin.
You
Thanks,
got it.
Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
See you on the interwebs, folks.
Hey.
Thank you.